Okay. This is the Rook community meeting for May 8th, 2018. And let's go ahead and get started. So I believe that in the 0.7 milestone that we do not have any lingering issues now. Travis, can you speak to the issue about the Rook agent formatting and in-use volume that's no longer on this board?
Yeah, I definitely wanted to speak to that. There was, or we talked at the last meeting about if this was really an issue in 1.10 since they updated um, the calls from LS block to um, the new one,
Block ID?
block ID exactly, um, and the repro that was supposedly on 110 that he tried it again, and he said he tried a bunch, and he's not been able to repro it again on 1.10. So I left the ticket open, but if it's fixed in 1.10, I think there's nothing more for us to do there, and we'll just have to. I think we need to post a warning that on 1.10 you can run into this issue, or previous to 1.10, and if it does repro on 1.10, then we'll have to look at it again, but we don't have that solid repro right now.
And who is the particular community member that you're referring to that is not able to reproduce on 1.10?
Yeah, so it was a Mickey, or what? Let's see, what issue number was that? Yeah, he commented on the end of that issue that he could not repro it. Um,
I think, okay, so it's definitely not Christian in his team, though.
no, it wasn't Christian. 1553.
Hello?
So if somebody's on the phone and not on mute, if you could go ahead and mute yourself, that would be nice.
I have to
Yeah.
take the.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and mute everyone.
Yeah.
Okay, that's better.
Okay, so I'm not on mute.
Yeah, I
it
left you.
was Mickey Miek was the one that says he could not repro it. He says he ran tests to see if this change could have impact, but it doesn't look like it. So he's on 1.10.1 now, and he says it looks stable for him now.
Okay, if for one more, I agree with everything I believe from your assessment so far here. Uh, when we were talking to Christian, he's the one in his team that originally reported this issue.
Mm-hmm.
When we were talking to them in Denmark at KubeCon, he mentioned that he did still see it happening somewhere, which I don't know the context of. So could you, mention him on that issue just to confirm that they're not seeing it either on 1.10 and greater, because that would definitely help me sleep better at night. And then I would agree with everything you've said so far.
All right. Yeah, it's just a matter of repro to say, is this really on 1.10? Okay.
All right, so that's 0.7 then. So in 0.8, Travis and I, was that not last week, but after the last community meeting, Travis, you and I went through and scrubbed the 0.8 milestone.
Yeah.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
To have the issues in there that are, in accordance with what we have defined in the roadmap. So I believe that this list is fairly scrubbed. I'm kind of catching back up from everything now after getting back from Copenhagen last night. So I don't personally have a good sense of the quantity of items in the milestone and what a release date would be for this milestone.
Mm-hmm.
Travis, have you thought about that within the past week? Because I think a bunch of these are in progress actually too.
Yeah, about half of them are in progress. And if those are really the big work items I feel like we've been working on for a while. The two in review there are finally fixed and ready for merge today. Been scratching my head over that one for a while. We'll talk about that in a bit. The ones still in the to-do column I feel like are smaller things for the most part rather than feature work. There are a couple of feature work things that maybe more at risk for an O.8, but I feel like we're
and with our convention, there are a lot of these, or some of these items at least, are nice to haves for 0.8 and not in the official milestone list, right?
that's true.
Yes.
I guess.
Hey, Alexander.
There he is. Yeah.
Thank you for joining. So I think right now, I think a good question to pose to the community would be about which from this list that we have scrubbed are at a risk or ones that we're concerned about. And then potentially as an offline exercise, Travis, you and I can figure out more what a release date would be now that we've kind of scrubbed the list in the past week or so. But any major concerns for issues that are on this list should be voiced right now in this meeting.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I assume we are now going to release without the multiple backend
Right.
factoring.
That's correct, Bassam.
Right.
And we have that as a specific issue to talk about later in the agenda meeting, the agenda doc as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's also the 1 OSD per pod that'll be really close, and that definitely in the security model and getting it working on OpenShift. I'm really close. I feel like I just opened an issue for OpenShift on that. We can talk about that later.
And you're picking up the rest of the security model changes?
Yeah, that's right.
I mean, they seem related, so yeah.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay.
I would say that these two right here are very likely long polls, or there's not really someone assigned to them yet. There's potentially more design to do. I think that these are not necessarily in good shape for a near-term 0.8 release.
Yeah, agreed on that.
Those are the two that are really screaming out to me. Everything else.
Yeah, the support for arbitrary persistent volumes seems like an important one.
Yeah, I really have liked that one. We've gotten a lot of feedback from people we've talked to in the community as well that that's something that we want to do. There's the design for supporting multiple storage providers and storage types does have an affordance for this as well, but it's not really in depth designed. But it is something that has been on the radar, and we still want to do this soon. But we don't really have anyone who's taken ownership of it specifically.
So with the ticket, we are kind of just talking about allowing persistent volume, storage class to be used for an OSD for a directory, or are we talking about data host buff here?
We're talking about persistent volumes in general being able to be used for storage providers on top of to consume. So not just OSDs. This is a more general.
So data host buff and OSD.
No, all storage providers, Alex. Minio, Cockroach, anybody, not just OSDs.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So I think that Travis, I don't know if you can comment on some of the guys on your team in terms of what their priorities are in the near term. I know Wyman is working on the one pod Pro SD, and then would adding and removing disks and directories be a next thing for him?
Yeah, I think that'd be a good transition. There's Dan Mick also may be getting that direction. He's been looking at Ceph volume stuff too, which isn't in the O.8 board. But I definitely see us from Red Hat taking that one. I'm not sure if it'll make the O.8 timeframe, but there have been a couple of requests for that feature for sure. So I'd like to get it in O.8, but the reality of the timeline may not work out.
Right. And so the rest of the items in here, there's really not that much I'm concerned about, considering how much of it is either in progress or in review, or really good progress has been done on a lot of them. Potentially how much we're going to scope improving the security model, that may be something to talk about more, but at least Travis, you said that you have ownership of that going forward.
Mm-hmm.
So that's good. But yes, go ahead, Bassam.
Well, on that one, we actually have a design. So if we're not going to complete the whole design, we should probably figure out what other tickets going to fall out.
Right.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Scope for this milestone. If the design is completed.
Yeah, I'll look at that more in the next couple of days and flush it out, I guess, to see what is left with it.
Okay, I'm going to, at least in the agenda doc, kind of capture these as risks.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I think that's really the rest of the discussion we should be having right now. All right, any other items to bring up for 0.8 right now?
I would like to bring up one of the Mon tickets.
Which one, Alex?
I'm not sure if I'm seeing it. The one with where we don't run more than one monitor on one node, if that hasn't already been implemented.
Is that this one, 1386, Alex?
Give me a second, I'm on my phone still.
Okay.
Yeah, that sounds like the one.
Yeah, Mon should never be placed on a node with another Mon.
It's already assigned to me. Yeah, that should be definitely in the whole thing. I should be able to work on that.
Okay.
And I believe it's in the in progress column as well, assigned to you, Alex.
Really? Oh, I should.
Is that news to you?
I might have put it there after the last meeting or something.
Yeah.
Sorry.
That's fine.
All right, sounds good. So let's take a look at the next item on the agenda doc. It would be KubeCon Europe retrospective.
It was awesome.
Yeah.
Travis,
like
did
a
you
great
add
time.
this to the agenda to the doc when you created the template last night for me?
I did. Yeah.
Nice. I like how you added it, but you weren't there.
Yeah, just curious to hear any more about how it went. It sounded like a great time and great community interest, and and any other things that I know there's been a lot of on Twitter and that I saw. But
yeah, it was from my perspective, it was a very good experience where we got to meet up with and have some really good conversations with a fairly good showing from the Rook community. Alex did a great job too of continually kind of organizing and getting guys together as well to kind of keep a little posse of Rook folks hanging out together during the week. So that was really nice. We had 3 talks about Rook topics. One of them was an intro to the project. Another was a deep dive that Tony and Alex got to take 2 separate deep dive tracks on. Tony took a deep dive into what it takes to integrate a storage provider with Rook, including some of the code samples about how you build an operator and listen for events on the CRD for the storage provider, and kind of implement or deploy a storage solution inside of a Kubernetes cluster. And then Alex did a deep dive from an administrator's perspective, where he showed off his real cluster, bare metal cluster that he's running, and the even more usages of storage from applications than I even thought he had. So that was really good to see all that stuff. And then we had a third talk about the portability of data and some ideas for building truly portable storage solutions in Kubernetes that we are looking to start building in Rook as well. And I think Bassam opened some issues about those, and it looks like there's some good support from some people that have real world scenarios that want to be solved from, adding more abstractions for storage on the consumption side, like databases and buckets and things like that. So all those talks went really well. They have all been published to the CNCF's YouTube channel, and I will put a link here in the doc to that so that we can people can follow up and watch the talks later on. Probably put it in Slack as well. Yes. Anybody else have any thoughts from their experiences in Copenhagen this week?
There were some pretty good ideas coming out of people during the Meet the Maintainers session, I guess. Some people were talking about like what they wanted as far as like the testability of storage goes, and things like benchmarking and stuff like that. I thought that was pretty good. I asked them to follow up or join the Slack, and I don't know if they've had a chance to do that or if they're going to. But it's something we should think about in the long term.
Yeah, Tony, and if there's anything that that you specifically remember that you haven't seen somebody open an issue for, feel free to go ahead and follow up and make sure that that gets captured if you thought it was something that's important.
Okay.
Jared?
Yes.
Could you add like that you add the links to the whole thing?
Oh, that me do it?
Just to add JBV that you do.
Oh. All right, a stickler for assignment. All right, I like it. Anybody else good experiences from KubeCon?
Well, KubeCon was, as I already said, totally awesome. Meeting all the folks. Well, after KubeCon was also good, Jared, but no, it was pretty interesting, pretty good that we had the deep dive and the project intro, and we could kind of see how well people joined. More people joined after the intro already and after the deep dive, and a good amount of people were, well, they had a question, we could without a problem go, hey, could you please join us Slack? And I already have a few people that I'm already following up on, and so yeah. It was totally awesome, and yeah, but would come again, but then to Seattle.
Yeah. Good keynote mentions too, with since it was just accepted.
Right. Yeah, there was a particular a quick focus on the Rook project itself and the CNCF keynote, which was cool, from Liz Rice, who is an awesome lady. She had some good talks of her own too about security too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right. Cool. So let's move on to the community topics and questions. So the first one we have on here is that we have a new contributor to the project, Rohan, who is a university student who's got accepted by the Google Summer of Code program to work on Rook this summer. Hi, Rohan. You're on the call, right? Oh, I think I muted you. You felt my mute wrath. I'm sorry.
Hopefully people can unmute themselves too.
Yeah, I'm clicking unmute and it's not letting me unmute. That's kind of lame.
Are you sure? He just has the microphone that's off, you know. Rohan, can you try typing in the chat if you're there?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks for introducing me, Jared. So, hi guys.
Hey, Rohan.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're looking forward to the work that you're going to be working on this summer with adding NFS as a storage backend. I think there's some interesting things to do there. And the first phase of Rohan's work is a community bonding period, which Rohan has actually already got a very good head start on that like a month ago by working on a pull request and getting his developer environment set up. So Rohan's a go-getter and has already got a good head start on all that. The next, I believe, will be a design document, right, Rohan, for the NFS stuff?
Yeah. So, like I was looking into that watermark thing, and one more is that external storage of Kubernetes incubator. So basically, I saw that whatever they are doing, they are just starting an NFS server. So what will be good, I think, like in the Rook, so we can add NFS server in the Rook itself, and then we can just use that NFS which is provided in Chef. So that will be a good idea.
Cool. We'll be looking forward to the design write-up to kind of hash it out as a community and get feedback from other folks in the community too. So looking forward to working with you this summer.
I'm trying to find a link with what was yeah, the factor out Chef storage, factor out Chef specification implementation. So here I got a good idea of like the directory structure in that package. PKG folder. So I guess I will start my design from here. Is that the good start? I guess.
Are you asking about where to put the link to the design document, or?
No, I got this like factor out specific implementation. There was one design doc for enabling multiple backends in Rook.
Oh, I see. I see. Yeah. So probably a specific one page, like in that design folder, is a good place to put a one pager, and having a specific one that's just about NFS, I think is a good way. So it'll be scoped.
Yeah.
We can look at it all in one place.
Yeah.
Cool.
So I just need help to figure out like where to get started designing.
I think if you just write it up however you want, right, in the one pager, organize it in a way you think sounds good, and then we can iterate on that with a Google Doc. People can comment, and like any of the minutia we can just deal with in a comment.
Okay. Okay, fine. And I guess like starting with just deploying NFS will be fine, and after that we can add features to it.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't hurt to have more info and more background, right? That way, if people just read it, they learn more stuff. That's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, that sound like great details, definitely.
Great.
All right. So we kind of talked about the 0.8 milestone earlier above, but one specific thing that I wanted to talk about was the work that we had done to add support for multiple storage providers and storage types. We need to get that into master. As you may have noticed at KubeCon, we gave demos that was showing the new operators, and we have a blog post too talking about the new operators and types for CockroachDB and for Minio. And they're based off of the big refactor for supporting multiple storage types. It's not yet in master. So that is my personal highest priority, is getting that to a state where it is ready to go to master. One of the big things for that is ensuring that we do not regress any existing deployments from master or previous releases. And so one aspect of that is supporting migration of the existing types. Like for instance, you have a V1 Ceph cluster or cluster type that was only supporting Ceph before, and now we have specific types for specific storage providers. And so we've written code for the operator to migrate those types, but we need to ensure that that's well tested, and that we don't release something or put something into master that's going to break existing deployments. So that's a big part of the work that's left there. Some integration testing, making sure all the docs are updated, Helm chart support, all those items are still outstanding. And I am the owner of those, but there may be some possibility here for getting support or help from other developers in the community as well. Travis, you may be a good candidate for that, or Tony, you may be a good candidate for that as well, since you've been elbow deep in a lot of that code working on the Minio operator.
Yeah, I think it'd be good really quick to get the upgrade document updated, and then even have members of the community, if there's someone who could try it out as well on a test cluster, just to expand the test surface area beyond the integration tests and all that. But yeah, getting the integration tests going, there's a bunch of tests failing right now, right? I didn't look too close at that yet.
I'm going to make the assumption that that's true. I didn't even look at those, the results yet. I saw a big red X, and I assumed it wasn't from one single test failing.
Right, okay. So probably, yeah.
Yeah, but I do like your idea about having someone else in the community with a test cluster to try to walk through the upgrade document and making sure that works appropriately or successfully for them.
Jared, did you say that the migration is automated, or is that we're going to give instructions for how people do that?
That is automated by the operator because it's basically a type conversion. There's no real functionality conversion, because once you're done, you end up with the Ceph, at least for Ceph, you end up with the same OSD and monitor pods, but the types, the CRD types that represent them are different. So it's really a type in-place type conversion. So that can be automated fairly easily, quote unquote.
And Travis, have you had a chance to review the work in the branch?
Yeah, I did review it and added a few comments to it and tried out locally in a branch just briefly last week, but I haven't had a chance to look at integration tests or anything.
Yeah, it almost feels like, given that that this is such a fundamental change and that we're trying to get a 0.8 release out. I completely agree that we should get this in master, but it almost feels like we should all get involved and try to get up to master so that we could make the process a little easier for us to release.
Yeah, just given the surface area and type changes, CRD changes.
I mean, if there are different pieces that we can assign to to different folks and get it into master quicker, then that seems well worth it.
Yeah, I have what I believe to be a fairly exhaustive list of remaining work items, and I do absolutely see opportunities for parallelism and, so have multiple assignees on them as well. So Travis, are you, as a resource and a human being, do you have availability to help out with that this week?
Yeah. The other issue that's been consuming me, I finally resolved yesterday, so I feel like I'm able to focus on other things now.
Awesome. Getting some support from you as a Rook maintainer would definitely make me very happy.
Mm-hmm.
So Jared, do you want to break out the tasks into like separate tickets then and just assign them to people?
Yeah, remind me real quick if does Git issue tracking, does it have any sort of a hierarchy at all, or is it just flat issues that can kind of reference each other?
No, I don't think you can.
Or would it be
subtasks?
Would it be worth in the PR just using the checkboxes?
That actually may be a really good way to do that, Travis, because they're not massive things that necessarily need their own issues. Perhaps tracking it in the work in progress PR with those that task list might actually be a very good way to do that.
Right.
Yeah. Well, so we'll follow up offline on that. Then that sounds fine. This this item I had here about merge conflicts with some of the big Ceph changes that are going on right now. One of them, for example, was the device discovery and having that be used as an input to OSD deployment. And then the next one being one pod per OSD. I had a concern about those causing a lot of conflicts while the code base is being massively refactored. Git actually does a pretty good job of being able to apply changes during merges across moved files. So the device discovery change from Wyman was not actually that bad. So I'm more concerned about one OSD per pod, but depending on the progress of that, I would not say it's a requirement to hold off on that from going to master. And putting that burden basically on Wyman, that would not be necessarily too respectful. So I don't know how much work is left on that, but I personally would not say that going to master is blocked on this refactor.
Right, and I think he's getting close, but I think it's going to need a lot of testing too and upgrade. I don't know. I'm not sure he's looked at the upgrade path yet from 0.7.
Yeah, that's actually might be kind of dicey because that does change the components that are deployed in the cluster.
Mm-hmm.
So with that, I am actually kind of concerned about that upgrade.
Yeah. So that's something that may delay anyway beyond the multiple backend.
Is Wyman on this call?
He said let's see what he say. He had to miss it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I'll follow up with him.
Yeah. If you can follow up with him and sync up about what the plan, how much work is left, and then also what the plans are for upgrade or migration, that would be very helpful.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I will add the remaining items as work items to the work in progress PR, and then get some assignees and start kind of parallelizing that effort.
Yep.
Okay. PRs to discuss that need attention. Travis, you have this PR here about our Rook agent flex volume supporting multiple clusters. That's why I took a look at that earlier this morning, I believe, didn't I?
Yep. So this came out of the investigation of getting the integration test to run on 1.10, which in theory was going to be a simple thing, but it turns out there was a change that exposed some conflicts we have in our integration tests and really in production code with the flex volume driver. And to explain what that is in a nutshell, so our flex volume driver, because it uses the RPC channel and anyway, there's a single name it uses for the Rook flex volume driver
for the Unix socket.
Unix socket, yeah, and it uses that same a hard specific path for that socket. And so if you have multiple Rook system namespaces, basically multiple operators running with multiple agents running on the same node is what it comes down to. Those agents would be starting up the same flex driver and using the same Unix socket. And
what's the scenario for multiple Rook agents on the same node?
So if you start up multiple operators, so if you want completely independent Rook operators, I'm not sure in reality I've seen anyone want to do that, but effectively our tests do that because you start up an operator in this namespace, you run some tests, then you tear it down, and then you start up the operator in another namespace, and then run the test there. So yeah, there really should probably only be one agent.
Test scenario?
Yeah. Also, if you wanted to run Ganesha in different for different tenants.
Yeah, so that's a good question for scenario though. Right, today it is a test scenario, but there's nothing preventing anyone either from running multiple agents. So I guess it's a question: do we?
And is this?
Someone?
I'm trying to remember now. That's the Unix socket. Is that a hard coded? That the flex driver needs to know what the socket is.
Right. Yeah. So it uses the path for the flex volume plugins, but under that, then it's a hard coded path to the socket. Right. So since the issue in the integration test was, when it shuts down the namespace in 1.10, just the behavior of shutdown of namespaces, the socket was closed after the new cluster started up, and so then it was just left with a dead socket, and the new tests failed. So the way to avoid that conflict is if we have a unique driver per agent, which based on namespace seems like the clearest way to do that. Then we end up with a more dynamic flex volume driver name, which Jared, then you pointed out in the code review that it seems kind of odd if you have to specify that namespace in the flex driver name. Right, for dynamic, dynamic plugins, it's not, you don't ever see that, but right now in the file system examples, you have to specify it. Now for backward compatibility, we still need to run it based on the hard coded path to the Unix socket. And so we're actually watching both paths. So you can still use the Rook flex volume driver name but you might hit conflicts at the same time. Does that make sense? So it does feel a little awkward, but we do have this issue with using Unix sockets that I'm not sure how to resolve without creating it based on the namespace.
Aren't we making the cluster name the same as the cluster namespace? Wasn't there something?
Oh, that's the property in the storage class. That's a different issue.
Yeah, maybe we can take that offline, but it seems like there could be a solution to this.
As long as you mean with offline that I possibly be able to join it.
Right. Can't you just template the name somehow?
Right.
Sorry, what was that?
Couldn't you just template the name somehow?
Template the name? Like
Put the name of the tenant in the Unix path name. Not a full namespace separation, but effectively namespacing it.
Just for the Unix socket, not the flex
Right.
driver. Right. Yeah, that may be a possibility. I'm not sure the flex driver knows what namespace it's in, though. The agent pod knows what namespace it's in, so that's not a problem. But the flex driver, I'm not sure has access to that when it tries to connect to the socket.
I will go ahead and continue discussion on the pull request then.
Yeah, okay.
All right, and so the next pull request here, that this pull request for the issue we were just talking about was the remaining elusive test breaking issue that was discovered by removing Kubernetes 1.6 support and adding support for 1.10 in our integration tests, correct?
Right, yeah.
Right, so those are highly related.
Yeah. I should probably break out the 1.6 from 1.10 into different PRs, especially if the 1.10 is still waiting on the other PR. So I'll probably do that. They don't need to hold for each other.
That would not be a bad idea, especially because the refactoring for multiple storage providers does not have TPR support, so it's relying on 1.6 support being removed.
Yeah, I'll split that out and make sure it gets in today, and then 1.10 can be delayed if needed, pending the other discussion.
Okay, so that is all we had on the agenda doc. Was there anything else that anybody wanted to bring up in this forum now that was not on the doc? Okay, then I believe we will be able to call it an end to the meeting right now.
All right.
All righty, thank you everybody. Appreciate it.
Thanks.
But
See ya.
See ya.